Get up. The command cut through the bar noise like a blade. Corporal Brandon Hayes stood over the old man in the wheelchair, beer in one hand, phone in the other. Recording. "Come on, Grandpa. Stand up and salute like a real Marine." Laughter erupted from the table behind him. 4 young Marines, fresh from deployment, phones out, cameras rolling. The man in the wheelchair didn't move. His weathered hands stayed wrapped around his whiskey glass. White hair cropped military short, eyes steady, distant, seeing something they couldn't. "What's wrong?" Hayes leaned closer, grinning. "Those legs give out before you ever saw combat?" The bartender, Marcus Sullivan, froze mid-pour. The few civilians in the corner went quiet. Something in the old man's stillness felt dangerous. Hayes reached down, tapping the wheelchair armrest. "I asked you a question, old man." The veteran's voice came out low, controlled. "Careful, son." "Or what?" Hayes laughed. "You gonna roll over me?" The old man set his glass down with deliberate precision. His eyes lifted. Calm, cold, carrying weight no 24-year-old could understand. "Before we continue, if you believe our veterans deserve respect no matter what they look like, type respect below, and tell me where you're watching from. This story of Tom Garrett proves that heroes don't always wear their medals on the outside." I read every comment. The bar was called Sullivan's, a dive 3 blocks from Camp Lejeune's main gate. The kind of place where Marines went to forget the base for a few hours. Neon signs buzzed in the windows. The jukebox played old country. The air smelled like fried food, cheap beer, and decades of cigarette smoke that no amount of cleaning could erase. Tom Garrett had been coming here for 2 years, always the same corner booth, always the same drink. Jameson neat. Marcus knew not to ask questions. The old man paid cash, tipped well, and never caused trouble. Until tonight. Hayes and his crew had rolled in an hour ago, loud and restless. They'd just returned from a 6-month rotation overseas. Young, cocky, invincible. The kind of energy that either made great Marines or dangerous fools. Hayes was both. He'd noticed Tom immediately. The wheelchair. The faded Marine Corps cap. The quiet way the old man sat alone while everyone else laughed and drank in groups. "Bet he's one of those stolen valor guys," Hayes had muttered to his buddies. "Probably never even deployed." One of them, a lance corporal named Davis, had hesitated. "Man, maybe we should just leave him alone." But Hayes was already standing, phone out, ready to make content. Now he stood over Tom, grinning for the camera. "So what's your story, Gramps? You actually serve, or you just like the attention?" Tom's jaw tightened slightly. His hands stayed steady on the glass. "I served." "Yeah?" Hayes leaned in. "Doing what? Mopping floors? Cooking chow?" Marcus stepped forward. "Hayes, that's enough." "Stay out of this, Mark." Hayes didn't look away from Tom. "I'm just asking questions. This guy's sitting here in our spot, wearing our hat, and he can't even stand up straight." Tom's voice came out quiet, but every word landed like a hammer. "You think the wheelchair makes me less of a Marine?" Hayes smirked. "I think if you can't stand, you can't fight. And if you can't fight, you're not one of us." The silence that followed was suffocating. Tom slowly reached into his jacket pocket. Hayes tensed, stepping back instinctively. But what Tom pulled out wasn't a weapon. It was a set of dog tags. Old, worn. The metal dulled from years of handling. He set them on the table with a soft clink. "These say otherwise." Hayes squinted at them, then laughed nervously. "Dog tags? Anyone can buy those online." But Marcus had moved closer. His face pale. He'd seen those tags before, years ago. In a photograph on the wall behind the bar, a wall dedicated to fallen Marines from the local area. The same tags Tom was wearing now. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "Tom, those are real," Tom finished quietly. "Yeah," Hayes frowned, sensing the shift in the room. "What's going on?" Davis stood up from the table. squinting at the dog tags. "Dude, let me see those." Tom slid them across the table. Davis picked them up carefully, turning them over in the light. His expression changed immediately. These are authentic." He looked up at Hayes. "Man, these have blood type, service number, everything. You can't fake this." Hayes snatched them, examining them closely. The engraving was worn, but clear. Garrett, Thomas J. USMC O-NAG 2003 to 2021. "So you served," Hayes said, handing them back with less confidence. "That doesn't mean what?" Tom's voice carried an edge now. "Doesn't mean I earned the right to sit in this bar? Doesn't mean I bled for the same flag you did?" A older Marine at the far end of the bar stood up. Staff Sergeant Ryan Kowalski, late 30s, a scar running down his left cheek. He'd been quiet all night, nursing a beer and watching. "Hayes," Kowalski said, his tone measured. "Shut your mouth." Hayes turned, irritated. "Staff Sergeant, I said shut it." Kowalski walked over slowly. His eyes were locked on Tom. "Sir, were you with recon?" Tom's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Once." Kowalski's face went pale. "What was your call sign?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus stopped wiping the glass in his hand. Davis set his beer down. Even Hayes went quiet, sensing something he didn't understand. Tom looked at Kowalski for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ghost actual." The effect was immediate. Kowalski's hand moved instinctively to his side, almost like a salute. He stopped halfway. His mouth opened, then closed. "No," he breathed. That's impossible." "What?" Hayes looked between them. "What's Ghost Actual?" Davis's voice was shaky. "It's a legend. From Iraq, 2003. A recon team got ambushed deep in enemy territory during the initial invasion. They were supposed to extract 2 high-value targets before they were moved across the Syrian border." Kowalski took over, his voice distant. "The team leader's call sign was Ghost Actual. They went dark for 72 hours. Command thought they were dead. But then what?" Hayes demanded. "Then the targets walked into a Marine checkpoint," Tom said quietly. "Alive, terrified." "But alive," Marcus whispered. "And the team?" Tom's hands tightened around his glass. "Didn't make it out." "They listed everyone KIA, Kowalski said, his eyes never leaving Tom. "The whole unit. Classified the mission, buried the files so deep nobody talks about it anymore." Hayes was starting to understand. "But if you're here—" "Then someone survived," Davis finished. The bar had gone completely silent. Even the jukebox seemed to have stopped. Kowalski's voice cracked. "Sir, they said Ghost Actual died in the desert. They said you—" Tom cut him off gently. "I did die. Just took a while for my body to figure it out." He gestured to the wheelchair. "Lost the legs 3 years ago. Infection from old shrapnel finally won." Hayes stood frozen. His phone still in his hand, recording everything. But the smirk was gone. The arrogance had drained from his face. "I didn't—" he started. "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Tom said simply. Another Marine spoke up from the back, a woman in her early 30s, Captain Elena Reyes. She'd been sitting alone, reading, but now she stood, her face unreadable. "Ghost Actual," she said slowly, testing the name. "That's not just a call sign. That's a warning." Tom looked at her. "You're too young to remember." "My brother wasn't," she said, stepping closer. "Captain Michael Reyes. He trained with the unit that replaced yours. They made him study what happened in the desert, every detail, every decision." She stopped a few feet away. "He said Ghost Actual made a choice nobody should ever have to make." Tom's expression hardened. "Your brother talks too much." "He's dead," Elena said flatly. "IED outside Fallujah, 2007. The words landed like stones. Tom closed his eyes briefly. "I'm sorry." Don't be, she said. He died knowing what real leadership looked like. Because of what you did. Hayes finally found his voice. What did he do? Elena turned to face the young corporal. He chose his mission over his men, and then he chose his men over himself. That doesn't make sense, Hayes said. It does when you understand what happened, Kowalski added quietly. What happened next shocked everyone in the room. Tom set his glass down and looked at the faces around him. Young Marines, old Marines, civilians who'd never serve, all waiting. You want to know what happened? He asked quietly. Fine. He took a breath. March 2003. Northern Iraq. My team was 8 men deep, recon Marines, the best the Corps had. Our mission was simple on paper: infiltrate a compound, extract 2 Iraqi scientists who wanted to defect before they were smuggled into Syria. Davis leaned forward. How deep were you? 90 miles behind enemy lines, Tom said. No air support, no backup, just us, the night, and bad intelligence. Marcus poured him another whiskey without asking. The compound was supposed to have 12 guards. We planned for 20 just in case. Tom's voice was steady, but his eyes had gone distant. When we breached, there were over 100. Jesus, someone whispered. It was a trap, Elena said. Tom nodded. Saddam's Republican Guard knew we were coming. They'd been waiting for days. The scientists were bait. Kowalski's jaw clenched. What did you do? What we were trained to do, Tom said. We adapted. Found the targets in a basement cell. They were terrified, beaten, but alive. We got them out through a service tunnel while my team held the line. His hands trembled slightly. But the tunnel collapsed. Mortar strike. Suddenly we were split, me and the targets on one side, my team on the other. Hayes spoke quietly now, all mockery gone. They were trapped. They were dying, Tom corrected. I could hear it over comms. Gunfire, screaming, my second in command. Lieutenant Carson told me to complete the mission, get the scientists out. And you did, Elena said. I did, Tom confirmed, because that was the mission. But it meant leaving my men behind. The weight of those words crushed the room. I carried those 2 scientists 40 miles through the desert, dodged patrols, hid in caves. Rationed water meant for 8 people between 3. Took us 72 hours to reach friendly lines. He paused, taking a long drink. When I got there, I was half dead, dehydrated, hallucinating. But the scientists were alive, mission accomplished. And your team? Marcus asked, though he already knew. KIA, all 7. Tom's voice didn't break, but it carried the weight of 18 years. Command declared the mission classified. Buried the file, gave me a medal I never wore and a discharge I never wanted. Kowalski spoke carefully. Sir, with all due respect, you saved those scientists. You completed an impossible mission. I abandoned my men, Tom said simply. You followed orders, Elena countered. Orders don't bring them home. Tom looked at her directly. Your brother understood that. Real leadership isn't about completing missions. It's about bringing your people back. The silence stretched. Then Kowalski did something that surprised everyone. He stood at attention and saluted. Tom stared at him. Stand down, Staff Sergeant. No, sir. Kowalski's hand didn't waver. You carried the weight of that decision for 18 years. You completed the mission knowing what it would cost. That's not abandonment. That's sacrifice. One by one, the other Marines in the bar stood. Davis, Elena, even Hayes, shakily, raised his hand in salute. Tom's eyes glistened, but he didn't move. I don't deserve that, he said quietly. Yes, you do, Marcus said from behind the bar. Because those scientists, they defected. Gave us intel that saved thousands of lives, chemical weapons sites, supply routes. Everything. Tom looked up sharply. How do you know that? Marcus reached under the bar and pulled out an old photograph. It showed him 20 years younger, in marine dress blues, standing next to a man in a suit. Because one of those scientists became a U.S. citizen, Marcus said. And he was my father-in-law. The room seemed to tilt. Tom stared at the photograph. That's Dr. Al-Rashid. Dr. James Rashid now, Marcus said quietly. He changed his name, built a new life, had a daughter, my wife. He set the photo on the bar. She died 3 years ago, cancer. But before she did, she made me promise something. What? Tom whispered. That if I ever met the Marine who saved her father, I'd tell him thank you. Marcus's voice cracked. So thank you, sir, for giving me the family I had. Tom couldn't speak. Hayes lowered his phone, his face pale. I recorded all of this. Tom looked at him, and for the first time, Hayes saw something beyond the wheelchair, beyond the age, beyond everything he'd assumed. He saw a warrior who'd never stopped fighting. Delete it, Tom said quietly. Sir, people should know. Delete it, Tom repeated, firmer now. This isn't a story for the internet. It's a reminder for you. Hayes hesitated, then nodded. He deleted the video. What's the reminder? He asked. Tom's eyes held his. That respect isn't earned by what you can see. It's proven by what you can't. But just as the moment settled, the door to Sullivan's burst open. A man in a dark suit stood in the entrance, rain dripping from his shoulders. Behind him, 2 more men. Same suits, same expression. Cold, official, dangerous. The man's eyes locked on Tom. Thomas Garrett, he said, his voice carrying authority that silenced the room. Also known as Ghost Actual, you're coming with us. Marcus stepped forward. Who the hell are you? The man pulled out a badge. Defense Intelligence Agency. Mr. Garrett's mission was never declassified. His survival was never authorized. Tom didn't move. He just stared at the man, his expression unreadable. You can't arrest him, Elena said, her voice rising. He's a veteran. He's a national security risk, the agent interrupted. His very existence compromises operations that are still active. Kowalski's hand moved toward his sidearm instinctively. But Tom raised his hand. Stand down, he said quietly. The bar erupted in protests, but Tom's voice cut through. All of you stand down. He looked at the agent. How long have you been watching? Long enough, the man replied. Tom nodded slowly. Then you know I'm not going anywhere. We have orders. I don't care about your orders, Tom said, his voice steel. I stopped following orders the day they told me to forget my brothers. The agent's expression didn't change. Then we have a problem. Tom smiled faintly. Yeah, you do. And that's when Major General Frank Dawson walked through the door. Every head turned. Dawson was in full dress uniform, ribbons across his chest, 2 stars gleaming even in the dim bar light. He was 60, built like a tank, with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by anything. The DIA agent stiffened. General, this is a classified operation. I know what it is, Dawson said, his voice like gravel. I authorized it. Tom's expression shifted slightly. Recognition. And something deeper. Anger. Frank, he said quietly. Dawson looked at him, and for the first time, emotion cracked through his military bearing. Tom. The agent stepped aside as Dawson walked slowly toward the booth. Marines instinctively moved out of his path. The general stopped a few feet from Tom's wheelchair. It's been 18 years, Dawson said. 19 next month, Tom corrected. They stared at each other, old comrades, old wounds. Marcus spoke carefully. General, do you know him? Know him? Dawson gave a bitter laugh. I'm the reason he's in that chair. The room went dead silent. Tom's voice was flat. That's not true. Yes, it is. Dawson pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. I was the operations commander for Desert Phantom. I'm the one who sent you into that compound. I'm the one who had bad intel, and I'm the one who gave you the order to leave your team behind. Elena's eyes widened. You ordered him to abandon them? I ordered him to complete the mission, Dawson said, because that's what commanders do. We make impossible choices and live with the consequences. Tom's jaw clenched. You didn't live with anything, Frank. You got promoted. You think I wanted that? Dawson's voice rose. You think I wanted to pin on stars while your men were buried in Arlington? While you disappeared into nothing? You could have told the truth, Tom said. The truth would have compromised national security. Dawson shot back. Those scientists gave us intelligence that stopped chemical weapons attacks, saved thousands of lives. If that mission became public, every enemy we had would have known our capabilities. So you buried us instead, Tom said bitterly. Dawson's face was stone. I buried the mission. I wanted to bring you home. But you vanished. Because there was nothing to come home to. Tom's voice cracked for the first time. My team was dead. My career was a classified file. My name was erased. What was I supposed to do, Frank? Show up at the base and ask for my pension? Hayes spoke quietly. So you just left? Tom looked at him. I discharged myself, found a VA clinic that didn't ask questions, lived off the grid for 15 years. He gestured to the wheelchair, until this finally caught up with me. Marcus leaned on the bar. The shrapnel. From the compound, Tom confirmed. They pulled out what they could, but some of it was too deep, too close to the spine. It's been migrating for years. 3 years ago, it finally severed the nerves. Elena's voice was soft. And you didn't tell anyone? Who would I tell? Tom asked. I was already dead on paper. Dawson stood abruptly. That ends tonight. The DIA agent stepped forward. General, protocol requires me to do what's right, Dawson snapped. And what's right is giving this Marine the honor he's owed. He turned to Tom. I can't undo what happened. I can't bring your team back. But I can do this. From his jacket. Dawson pulled out a small black case. He opened it carefully. Inside was a medal, silver, star-shaped, ribbons in red, white, and blue. The room collectively held its breath. The Silver Star, Kowalski whispered. Dawson's voice was formal now, but heavy with emotion. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against an enemy of the United States. For completing a critical extraction mission under impossible circumstances. For choosing duty over survival. For carrying the weight of command when no one else could. He pinned the medal to Tom's jacket, his hands shaking slightly. Thomas Garrett, the United States Marine Corps sees you. We honor you. And we will never forget what you sacrificed. Tom stared at the medal, then up at Dawson. His eyes were wet. It doesn't bring them back, he said quietly. No, Dawson agreed, but it proves they mattered, and so do you. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Kowalski saluted again. This time, everyone in the bar, Marines, veterans, civilians, followed. Even the DIA agent reluctantly raised his hand. Tom sat there, overwhelmed, unable to speak. Marcus broke the silence. Drinks on the house, for every Marine here, past, present, or future. Cheers erupted. The tension shattered. Marines clapped each other on the back. Someone turned up the jukebox. But Tom just sat there staring at the medal, his hands trembling. Dawson crouched beside him. Tom, there's something else you need to know. Tom looked up warily. Your second in command, Lieutenant Carson? The one who told you to complete the mission. What about him? Dawson pulled out his phone, scrolling to a photograph. He showed it to Tom. It was a grave marker at Arlington, fresh flowers beside it. He didn't die in the compound, Dawson said quietly. He survived. Made it back 3 weeks after you vanished, but he was never the same. PTSD. Survivor's guilt. He blamed himself for ordering you to leave. Tom's face went pale. No. He took his own life 6 years ago, Dawson said. Left a note, It said, "Tell Ghost I'm sorry. Tell him I should have found another way." Tom's breath caught. His hands gripped the wheelchair arms. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. "Because I didn't know where you were," Dawson said. "And maybe because I was afraid you'd do the same thing." Tom closed his eyes. "Carson." Elena stepped forward, her voice gentle. "It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it?" Tom's voice was hollow. "He gave that order because of me. Because I was in command, because war is hell," Dawson interrupted. "And it doesn't care about fault. It just takes." The bar had gone quiet again. Sensing the shift, Hayes approached slowly. "Sir, I need to apologize." Tom opened his eyes. "I judged you," Hayes continued, his voice shaking. "I thought the wheelchair made you weak. I thought you didn't earn your place here. I was wrong." He held out his hand. Tom stared at it, then slowly reached up. They shook. "You're young," Tom said. "You'll make mistakes. Just make sure you learn from them." Hayes nodded, swallowing hard. Then Tom looked at the room, at the Marines, at Marcus, at the medal pinned to his chest. "You want to honor me?" he said, his voice carrying. "Then honor them. Every Marine who didn't make it home. Every soldier who sacrificed everything. Don't let them be forgotten." Kowalski spoke for everyone. "We won't, sir." Tom nodded slowly. "Good." But as the night wore on, as the drinks flowed and the stories started, one question lingered in the air. What happened to the rest of Ghost's team? And why did the DIA really show up tonight? The answer came 2 hours later, when Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face went white. "Tom," she said quietly, "you need to see this." She showed him the screen. It was a news alert. Breaking. Declassified documents reveal existence of covert Marine operations in Iraq. Ghost team mission now public. Families demand answers. Tom stared at the phone. Then he looked at Dawson. "Frank, what did you do?" Dawson smiled faintly. "I leaked the file." "You what?" "The truth needed to come out," Dawson said. "Not just for you. For all of them. For Carson. For the families who never got closure." Tom's expression hardened. "You just ended your career." "Maybe," Dawson said, "but I should have done it 18 years ago." The DIA agent stepped forward, his face grim. "General Dawson, you're under arrest for unauthorized disclosure of classified materials." Dawson stood calmly. "I know." As they led him toward the door, he looked back at Tom one last time. "Semper Fi, Ghost." Tom's voice cracked. "Semper Fi, Frank." And then Dawson was gone. The bar sat in stunned silence. Then Tom spoke, his voice steady despite everything. "Marcus, one more drink." "You got it." As Marcus poured, Tom raised his glass to the room. To the ones who didn't make it home. To the ones who did but wished they hadn't. And to the ones who keep fighting, even when the war is over. Every glass in the bar rose. "Ura," they said in unison. Tom drank deeply, feeling the burn of whiskey and memory. Outside, rain began to fall. Inside, for the first time in 18 years, Tom Garrett felt like he could finally breathe. But the night wasn't over yet. The rain hammered against Sullivan's windows. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted from celebration to something heavier. The news about Dawson's arrest spread through the bar like wildfire. Elena was on her phone, pacing. "Command is going insane. They're saying Dawson acted alone, but what?" Kowalski asked. "But the leak was too clean, too coordinated." She lowered her voice. "Someone higher up wanted this story out." Tom sat quietly, staring at the silver star on his jacket. His mind was elsewhere, back in the desert, back in that compound, back to the moment everything fell apart. Hayes approached hesitantly. "Sir, can I ask you something?" Tom looked up. "Go ahead. In the compound, when you realized you had to leave your team, what went through your head?" Tom was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly?" "Yes, sir." I thought about shooting myself, Tom said flatly. The confession hung in the air like smoke. But Carson's voice came over the comm, and he said something I'll never forget. Tom's eyes were distant. Ghost, you don't get to quit. You get to finish. So I did. Marcus set another glass down. That took more strength than most people have. Or less, Tom said bitterly. Depends how you look at it. The door burst open again. This time it was a woman, mid-50s, expensive suit, rain-soaked. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on Tom. Thomas Garrett? Tom tensed. Who's asking? Dr. Sarah al-Rashid. She stepped forward and Marcus's face went pale. I'm Marcus's wife. Or I was. Tom stared. You died, he said. I almost did, she corrected. Cancer. But I'm in remission now. 6 months clear. Marcus rushed around the bar. Sarah, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be resting. I saw the news, she said, her voice shaking. About the Ghost Team file being declassified, about Desert Phantom, and I knew I had to come. She walked straight to Tom's table and knelt beside his wheelchair. My father told me what happened, she said. The real story, not the classified version. He told me about the Marine who carried him through the desert, who gave him water when he was dying, who promised to get him home. Tom's throat tightened. Your father is a good man. He's alive because of you, Sarah said. And so am I, because he lived long enough to have me, to raise me, to walk me down the aisle. She reached into her bag and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a younger Tom, barely recognizable, thinner, harder, standing with Dr. al-Rashid at a Marine checkpoint. Both were covered in dust and dried blood. He's kept this for 18 years, Sarah said, waiting for the day he could thank you in person. Tom took the photo with shaking hands. I didn't think anyone remembered. Everyone remembers, Sarah said. The scientists you saved, the families of the Marines who died, the soldiers who studied your mission and learned from it. She paused. My father wants to see you. He's at Walter Reed, stage 4 heart disease. He doesn't have long. Tom looked up sharply. How long? Weeks. Maybe days. The bar was silent. Tom set the photo down carefully. Take me to him. Marcus stepped forward. Tom, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Tom said firmly. If he dies without knowing I survived, without hearing that his life mattered. He shook his head. I can't let that happen. Elena was already moving. I'll drive. My car's outside. Kowalski grabbed his jacket. I'm coming too. Hayes stood. Sir, we all are. Tom looked at them. This group of Marines, strangers an hour ago, now standing ready to follow him into whatever came next. You don't know what you're signing up for, he warned. With all due respect, sir, Hayes said, neither do you. Sarah smiled through tears. My father will be honored. They moved quickly. Elena and Kowalski helped Tom into the car, a Honda Accord, practical and fast. Sarah rode in front. Hayes and 3 other Marines piled into a second vehicle. As they pulled away from Sullivan's, Marcus stood in the doorway, watching them go. The rain fell harder. The drive to Walter Reed was tense. Elena drove with military precision, weaving through traffic. Sarah sat silent, hands clasped, praying quietly. Tom stared out the window at the passing lights. Tell me about him. Your father. Sarah wiped her eyes. He's stubborn, brilliant. He worked for the CDC after defecting, helped develop protocols for bioterrorism response, saved more lives than anyone will ever know. He earned his freedom, Tom said. And you gave it to him, Sarah replied. He's never forgotten that. Every year on the anniversary of the extraction, he lights a candle. For you. For the Marines who died. He calls it his ghost night. Tom's jaw clenched. I don't deserve that. Yes, you do, she said firmly. They arrived at Walter Reed 40 minutes later. The hospital was massive, imposing, lights blazing against the storm. Elena parked in the emergency bay. Military plates got them through without questions. Inside, the sterile smell hit immediately. Antiseptic, sickness, death waiting patiently in quiet rooms. A nurse approached. "Can I help you?" Sarah stepped forward. "Dr. James Rashid, room 4C. I'm his daughter." The nurse hesitated, glancing at Tom in his wheelchair. "Visiting hours are—" "This is a military priority," Elena said, flashing her ID. "Clear the hallway." Something in her tone made the nurse nod quickly. "This way." They moved through corridors, white walls, fluorescent lights, the soft beep of monitors. Other patients watched them pass, curious about the group of Marines surrounding the old man in the wheelchair. Room 4C was at the end of the hall. Sarah paused at the door. "He doesn't know you're coming." The shock. "He's survived worse," Tom said. She nodded and pushed the door open. The room was dim. Machines beeped softly. An IV drip hung beside the bed. And in the bed, frail and thin, was Dr. James Rashid. He looked nothing like Tom remembered. The man who'd stumbled through the desert had been middle-aged, terrified, but strong. This man was elderly, his skin paper-thin. His breathing labored, but his eyes were the same. Sarah approached the bed. "Papa." Rashid's eyes opened slowly. "Sarah." His voice was a whisper. "You should be resting. I brought someone to see you." She stepped aside. Tom rolled forward into the light. Rashid stared. His breath caught. For a moment, he didn't move. Then tears began streaming down his face. "No," he whispered. You're dead." "They said—" "They were wrong," Tom said quietly. Rashid's hand reached out, trembling. Tom took it. "Ghost," Rashid breathed. "My God, you're real." "I'm real," Tom confirmed. For a long moment, they just held hands, two men bound by a night in the desert 18 years ago. Then Rashid spoke, his voice stronger now. "I thought I would die without saying this." "Without you knowing." "Knowing what?" "That you saved my life twice," Rashid said. "Once in the desert, and once every day after, when I wanted to give up, when the nightmares came, when I wondered if surviving was worth it. I remembered you, the Marine who refused to quit, who carried me when I couldn't walk, who promised me I would see my family again." Tom's throat tightened. "You had a daughter to live for." "I had two reasons," Rashid said, squeezing his hand. "Her and you. I couldn't let your sacrifice mean nothing." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Papa, tell him the rest." Rashid nodded weakly. "The other scientist, Dr. Khalid. Do you remember him?" Tom's face darkened. "Yes. He didn't defect for freedom," Rashid said. "He defected because he was the one who gave your position to the Republican Guard. He was the trap." The room went cold. Elena stepped forward. "What?" "Khalid was a double agent," Rashid continued. "He wanted asylum, but he also wanted to prove his loyalty to Saddam by delivering American soldiers. He gave them your coordinates, your entry point, everything." Tom's hands gripped the wheelchair arms. "And you knew this?" "Not until after," Rashid said quickly. "Not until we were at the checkpoint. He bragged about it, laughed about it, said he'd killed 8 Marines with one phone call." Kowalski's voice was hard. "Where is he now?" Rashid's eyes gleamed. "Dead. I killed him." Silence. "What?" Sarah whispered. "At the checkpoint," Rashid said. "When he confessed. I took a Marine's sidearm and shot him 3 times. They tried to stop me, but I wouldn't let go until he was gone." He looked at Tom. "They arrested me, detained me for 6 months. But I told them everything. About his betrayal, about his contacts, about every operation he'd compromised. Eventually, they believed me, gave me asylum. But I never told anyone about the shooting, until now." Tom stared at him. "You avenged them." "I avenged you," Rashid corrected, "because you deserved more than a classified file and a forgotten name." Hayes spoke quietly from the doorway. "Sir, he killed a man for you. He killed a traitor," Tom said. There's a difference. Rashid's breathing was labored now. Ghost, I'm dying. But before I go, I need you to know something. What? Your team. They didn't all die in the compound. Tom froze. What are you talking about? One of them survived, Rashid said. I saw him at the checkpoint 3 days after you left. He was barely alive, but he made it. The room seemed to tilt. Who? Tom demanded. Who survived? Rashid's voice was fading. I don't know his name, but he had a tattoo, an eagle, on his forearm, and he kept saying the same thing over and over. What did he say? Rashid's eyes closed. Find Ghost. Tell him I made it. Tom's world shattered. An eagle tattoo. That was Corporal Danny Morrison, his point man, his friend. Morrison, Tom whispered. Danny Morrison survived? Sarah looked stricken. Papa, why didn't you tell anyone? I tried, Rashid breathed. But by the time I got clearance to speak, the record said he'd died from his injuries. KIA, buried at Arlington. Elena was already on her phone. I'm pulling his file now. Tom couldn't breathe, couldn't think. If he survived, if he made it back. Then Command lied, Kowalski finished grimly. Elena's face went pale as she read her screen. Oh, God. What? Tom demanded. Morrison's file, it's sealed, not just classified, completely black-boxed, higher than top secret. What does that mean? Hayes asked. Elena looked up, her voice shaking. It means he's not dead. It means he's alive, and someone very powerful doesn't want anyone to know. The machines around Rashid's bed began beeping faster. His breathing turned ragged. Papa! Sarah grabbed his hand. A nurse rushed in. You need to leave, now. But Rashid's eyes opened one last time, locking on Tom. Find him, he whispered. Find Morrison. Finish what you started. Then his eyes closed. The machines flatlined. The sound of the flatline filled the room. Sarah collapsed against the bed, sobbing. Nurses rushed in, pushing the Marines back. Clear the room, a doctor shouted. They tried to revive him. Chest compressions, defibrillator, desperate commands barked back and forth. But Tom knew. He'd seen that look before, that final moment when a man's fight is over. After 3 minutes, the doctor called it. Time of death, 23:47. Sarah's scream cut through everything. Elena pulled her away gently, holding her as she wept. The Marines stood silent, heads bowed. Even Hayes, barely knowing these people, felt the weight. Tom sat motionless in his wheelchair, staring at Rashid's still form, the man who'd survived because of him, who'd lived 18 years carrying Tom's story, who'd just revealed a truth that changed everything. Morrison was alive. The door opened. A hospital administrator entered, clipboard in hand. Expression carefully neutral. I'm very sorry for your loss. We'll need to leave, Elena said coldly. The administrator hesitated, saw the look in her eyes, and left. Kowalski approached Tom. Sir, if Morrison's alive, then I left him for nothing, Tom said quietly. No. The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. A man stood there, late 40s, military bearing. Suit that screamed federal agent. But his eyes held recognition. You left him so he could survive, the man said. Tom's voice was ice. Who the hell are you? The man stepped forward. Someone who's been waiting 18 years to meet you. He pulled out a badge, CIA. My name is Daniel Morrison, but you knew me as Danny. The room exploded. That's impossible, Elena said. You're dead. My file is a lie, Morrison said. Just like Ghost Actual's file was a lie. Just like this whole damn operation was a lie. Tom stared at him. The face was older, harder, carrying scars Tom didn't remember. But the eyes. Danny, Tom whispered. Morrison's expression cracked. Yeah, boss. It's me. Tom couldn't speak, couldn't move. Morrison crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to one knee in front of the wheelchair. "I made it out," he said, his voice breaking. "Took me 3 days, but I made it. I thought you were dead. They told me you were dead, that you died getting the scientists out." "They told me the same about you," Tom said. "I know." Morrison's hands were shaking. "When I got back, they debriefed me, separated me from the unit, told me the mission never happened. That ghost team never existed. They gave me a new name, a new life, and buried me in the CIA." "Why?" Kowalski demanded. Morrison stood, facing them. "Because I was the evidence. The living proof that the mission went wrong. That command sent us into a trap. That they left men to die." He pulled out a folder from inside his jacket and handed it to Tom. "This is everything. The real mission files, the intelligence that was deliberately falsified, the names of everyone who knew it was a trap and sent us anyway." Tom opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were documents, photos, transcripts of conversations between high-ranking officials discussing acceptable losses. One name appeared over and over: General Marcus Thornton, Dawson's superior officer. "Thornton set us up?" Tom breathed. "He needed the scientists extracted," Morrison said. "But he also needed plausible deniability. So he made sure we'd walk into an ambush. If we died, the mission failed but stayed secret. If we succeeded, he'd bury us anyway." Elena's face was murderous. "Where is Thornton now?" "Retired. Living in Virginia Beach. Untouchable." Morrison's jaw clenched. "Until tonight. Until Dawson leaked the file. Now the whole world knows Ghost Team existed. And they're going to want answers." Hayes spoke up. "So what do we do?" Tom looked at the folder, at Morrison, at the body of Dr. Rashid. "We finish it," he said quietly. "We tell the truth, all of it." Morrison nodded. "I've been gathering evidence for years, waiting for this moment, but I needed you alive to corroborate it. That's why you kept me classified," Tom realized. "I had to," Morrison said. "If Thornton knew you were alive, he'd have had you killed. I've been protecting you from the shadows for 18 years. Tom's eyes glistened. "You should have told me." "I wanted to," Morrison said. "Every single day, but keeping you hidden kept you safe." Sarah's voice cut through, raw with grief. "My father is dead because of this, because he knew too much, because he was a witness." Morrison's face fell. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I tried to protect him too. But heart disease—" "Wasn't heart disease," Tom interrupted, his voice hard. He looked at the IV bag. "Was it?" Morrison's silence was answer enough. "They poisoned him," Elena whispered. "Slow acting. Untraceable," Morrison confirmed. "Thornton's people have been cleaning up loose ends for months. Anyone connected to Desert Phantom. Anyone who could testify." He looked at Tom. "You're next on the list, boss. That's why I'm here, to get you to safety." But Tom shook his head. "I'm not hiding anymore." "Tom, no." Tom's voice carried command again, the voice Morrison remembered from the desert. "We go public. We tell everything. And we make sure Rashid's death means something." Morrison stared at him, then slowly smiled. "There's the ghost, I remember." Kowalski stepped forward. "Sir, you'll need protection, security." "You'll have it," Elena said. "Every Marine in this hospital just became your personal guard." Hayes was already on his phone. "I'm calling my unit. We'll lock this place down." Tom looked around at the faces. Sarah, grieving but resolute. Morrison, ready for the fight he'd waited years for. Marines he'd met hours ago now, willing to risk everything. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you all doing this?" Sarah wiped her tears. "Because my father died believing in you. I won't let that be for nothing." Morrison's voice was fierce. "Because you're my brother, and I don't leave brothers behind." Kowalski spoke for the Marines. "Because you're one of us, sir, and we protect our own." Tom's throat tightened. For 18 years he'd been alone, forgotten, erased. Now he had an army. "All right," he said. "Then let's go to war." Morrison pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the Washington Post. They've been investigating Thornton for months. This gives them everything they need." "Do it," Tom said. As Morrison dialed, Elena moved to the window. "We've got movement outside. 3 SUVs, black, government plates." "Thornton's people?" Hayes asked. "Probably," Morrison said. "They move fast." Tom looked at the folder in his hands, the evidence, the truth. "Then we move faster," he said. Morrison finished his call. "Reporters on her way. 30 minutes. "We won't have 30 minutes, Elena said, watching the SUVs park. "They're setting up a perimeter." Tom's mind raced. "Morrison, how'd you get in here?" "Service elevator. Basement level." "That's our exit," Tom said. "We get to the basement, we get to the press, we win." Kowalski grinned. "I love it when plans are simple." They moved quickly. Sarah refused to leave her father's body, but 2 nurses promised to stay with him. The Marines formed a protective circle around Tom and Morrison. In the hallway, hospital staff scattered as the group moved with military precision. Elena led, weapon drawn. Hayes and Kowalski flanked. Morrison pushed Tom's wheelchair faster than it was designed to go. They reached the elevator. Morrison hit the button. Nothing happened. "They've locked it down," he said grimly. "Stairs," Elena commanded. "I can't," Tom started. "Yes, you can," Morrison said. He lifted Tom out of the wheelchair like he weighed nothing. "I carried you once. I'll do it again." They hit the stairwell at a run, Tom on Morrison's back, Marines above and below, the sound of boots echoing in the concrete shaft. 3 floors down, a door burst open, 2 men in suits, weapons drawn. Elena fired first, 2 shots, both men dropped, wounded, not dead. "Keep moving!" she shouted. They reached the basement. The service exit was ahead, 50 feet. Behind them, more footsteps. More doors opening. "Contact rear!" Kowalski called out. They were surrounded. Tom looked at Morrison. "Put me down! Boss! Put me down!" Morrison set him against the wall. Tom straightened as much as he could. "Listen to me!" he shouted, his voice echoing. "Every man in this corridor is a Marine or a federal agent. We're all Americans. And we're all here because someone at the top decided their career was more important than the truth." The footsteps slowed. "You want to shoot me?" Tom continued. "Fine. But know this. The evidence is already out there. The press has it. In 30 minutes, the whole world will know what really happened to Ghost Team." Silence. Then a voice from the shadows, older, commanding. "Stand down." General Marcus Thornton stepped into the light. He was 70, still fit, eyes like chips of ice, 4 stars on his collar. He looked at Tom with something between respect and hatred. "Ghost Actual," he said. "I should have killed you in the desert." Tom smiled coldly. "You tried." Thornton didn't reach for a weapon. He just stood there, surrounded by his security detail, staring at the man who'd haunted him for 18 years. "You won't win this," Thornton said. "I already have," Tom replied. Behind them, the sound of sirens, police, federal agents, military police, and cameras. The Washington Post reporter had arrived early. She'd brought backup. CNN, Fox, Reuters. The basement suddenly flooded with lights. Thornton's face went pale. "You can't—" "I can," Tom said. "And I will." Morrison stepped forward. "General Marcus Thornton, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, falsification of military records, and treason against the United States Marine Corps." Thornton's security detail looked at each other, then slowly lowered their weapons. The reporter pushed through, microphone raised. "Mr. Garrett, is it true you're the sole survivor of Ghost Team?" Tom looked directly into the camera. "I'm not the sole survivor. There were 8 of us. 7 died heroes. 1 lived to tell the truth. And tonight, the world finally gets to hear it." The cameras rolled. Morrison handed over the folder. Thornton was led away in handcuffs, and Tom Garrett, Ghost Actual, finally stopped hiding. 3 months later, Tom sat at Arlington National Cemetery. Section 60. 7 new headstones, finally marked with the right names. The Marine Corps had held a ceremony, full honors. Dawson had been there, charges dropped, standing proud. Morrison stood beside Tom's wheelchair, both men in dress blues. "We did it, boss," Morrison said. Tom nodded slowly. "Yeah, we did." Somewhere behind them, cameras clicked. The story wasn't over. It would never be over. But for the first time in 18 years, Tom Garrett could breathe. To everyone who typed respect and shared where you're watching from, thank you for standing with our heroes. Subscribe for more stories like this and unsung American heroes. See you in the next one.